Hey, it's Matt Pinfield. It's KLOS New and Approved. My guest today is the incredible annwilson. And she's got a great new record out that came out in September, very end of September. I love this record you've done with Tripter. First of all, the song This Is Now is amazing. So, Ann, thank you for doing the show, by the way. I should say it's really great to see you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So, Ann, talk to me about the guys that you got together with to make this record. It's, the first time done all new material with a new band. How did you find the guys, your bandmates, that are performing with you here?
Well, I had a bunch of demos a couple of years ago, and I wanted to develop them. And I called my friend Vince Gill and asked him if he would help me with the sessions. And he said he couldn't do it, but hire this guy, Tom Bukovac. So I did. And I just told Tom, bring some musicians that you really like, and let's just roll on these things. So we did. And that's how we all met. It really clicked right off.
Yeah. I mean, songs like, I love this record. First of all, This Is Now. And then Waiting for the Magic is a great song. Rusty Robots really rocks, but then there's really, like it's really, it's diverse. And then, you'll find a song like Little Things Are, still, I did so much stuff on this record. For me, it's great to hear you, just working in, different contexts with the song styles are very diverse. And I love that about it. And it gives you the opportunity to sing in so many different ways and different registers that you have. Tell me about that.
Well, I've put out a few solo albums in the past that have been mainly covers, and that's fun and everything. And it's a lot easier work, but this time I wanted to do something really, really different. And these musicians that Tom Bukovac came up with are great songwriters in their own right. They come up with really cool musical ideas. And I'm a lyricist at heart, so our two things got together really well. And I've never been one to choose a theme and just make every song fit into the theme. I've always wanted to just, each song is its own separate entity. It's like a variety show or something.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing, right? I mean, because, it really, as you're writing a song, each thing is an individual piece of music. Yeah. And so that way you can do things in so many different ways. And I think that is so important, And it really shows on this record. It's great to see. And again, so what was in a situation where they were sending you music? Were you guys getting in a room together, or were they sending you stuff and you were living with it? How did you work? How was the process?
Well, it was mostly us being in the room together. Paul Moak who's our keyboard and guitar player, has a studio in Nashville called Smokestack. And it's just a really cool little funky place, little hole in the wall place. But it's kind of remote feeling, even though it isn't. We went in there and hung out for a week at a time and just came up with these songs, just being in a room together. And I guess that speaks loudly to how we get along as people, because, we're in that little space for months and months, nearly 2 years.
2 years? Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. So you spent that time.
Yeah, on and off, like we didn't spend 2 solid years together in a room, but we came together every chance we got and just wrote.
Did most of this stuff happen like after or kind of in the midst of the pandemic? What was the timeline?
I think that the initial demos were written during the pandemic, but then once we got the bit in our teeth about Tripter, we started just putting on masks and going to the studio, and just it didn't matter if there was a pandemic going on because we were being careful and kind of isolating with each other. But it worked.
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean, this is a deep record. as a fan of yours since I was a kid and buying, the early records on Mushroom Records back in the day. You know what I mean? As in the 70s, because, I'm 62, so I've been around for a long time and been a fan forever. So it's been it's just been great to follow everything you've done over the years, and I've never, it's probably the first time I'm even telling you that I remember buying like the import record that wasn't available for a while with Heartless on it, just everything, like you had, when that came out, it finally made its way to where I was from in New Jersey, and I'm like, I gotta get this, and got that, after Dream About Annie, so like, you know what I mean? So, and then move forward. So, it's been a long journey of being a very big fan of yours and of Nancy's and the bands and what you do together and separately. I gotta talk to you about that too. So there is talk of you guys gonna do some things together again, right? You're gonna start playing. That's what I was hearing.
Yeah, we are next year. We're doing 3 shows around New Year's Eve, culminating in Seattle at the Climate Pledge Arena, and we're just gonna see how that goes and see how it feels, and if it's real and it's leveling up, then we'll do some more stuff together. But the only way we'll do that is if it feels like we're climbing. We're not just going to go become a jukebox of old heart stuff. We're just not going to do that, No. We're going to play the good old heart songs that we still love to play and everything, but we're not ever going to be one of those bands that just rides it down,
Yeah.
Not going to do that.
Well, I think it's a thing. It speaks volumes about the fact that both of you like to be creative and continually working. And it also says a lot, and I've always wanted to ask you this too. I know that one of the things that was so great about all the bands that came out of the Seattle scene was those deep friendships that you had with the guys from all the bands. And, besides going and recording, at Live Animals and different, those old things where everybody, but you were really embracing and supportive and great friends with the guys in Soundgarden and, Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam and, Mother Love Bone back in the day. And tell me a bit about that, because there's a camaraderie that's really always been there, and the love that all those guys had for you. And I know that from all the, album interviews and specials I did with all those guys over the years. Talk to me about that. You think that, what does that have to do with just really how honest and authentic and real everybody was that was in that scene?
I think so. And I think that Seattle has always been, again, kind of a remote place. People don't think of Seattle like they think of the typical Live Nation circuit. Like whenever you get your new itinerary for a tour, you may or may not play Seattle. It's like not one of those stops, and that speaks to the nature of Seattleites. It rains a lot. They're kind of self-possessed people. And in that particular era, the so-called grunge era.
Which, we the quotations.
Yeah. The 80s and all that artifice and all that pop music needed to be washed away really bad. And I think that was the main gripe that a lot of those bands had, was this is bullshit. Let's just get out there and make it be real. And they used the language and they hawked loogies off the stage and all that kind of stuff that is just sort of anti-80s.
Yeah. And it's
preppy.
And a lot of great music came out of it. That's for sure. I mean, without a question, and continues to. And again, I just found that so many of the people were really great up there. You've always been a lover of Zeppelin, and of course, when you did Love Mongers and were involved in the single soundtrack. But one of the most beautiful things I saw was, watching you guys do Stairway to Heaven and seeing, Robert and Jimmy and John Paul Jones, and that when you performed Stairway to Heaven, that magic moment where you made Robert's plant cry, where those guys were so emotionally moved by a song they performed so many times. And for a long time, Robert was, he would call it an old wedding song. He got so tired of playing.
Yeah, yeah. I don't blame him.
Yeah,
I don't blame him because at this point it's almost like that for us too. But.
I know what you mean. But it was a kind of thing that I think. Can we talk about the fact that I think it's a thing that made him re-embrace the power and the beauty of the song before people heard it a billion times, and it was like on FM radio every minute of the day when we were coming up. So tell me about that experience for you and how that looked from your perspective.
The Kennedy Center.
Yeah, the Kennedy Center. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like a dream night, really. I just remember it being very surreal because I wasn't really aware of what really it was going to be until we got to the rehearsal that afternoon. And I actually saw the production that had been planned for Stairway and all the different choir singers and the way it all unfolded and got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I was like, holy shit, that is going to be great. And then, of course, at the actual concert, the audience was so star-studded that you looked out and you couldn't not see somebody who blew your mind.
Yeah.
It's like all these super famous people from all walks, not just music, but politics and television and movies. And, it was amazing. It was really never to be forgotten experience. And I know Nancy and I, at the last moment before we were going to walk on and actually do Stairway to Heaven, we both kind of looked at each other with these big owl eyes. And there was a moment when we could have gotten really scared, and really blown it by being nervous. And we just decided not to. We just went, we'll do this later. Let's just go out right now and keep our eyes on the ball and do this song the way we know we can.
Yeah.
And make it good. The mission was to please the Led Zeppelin guys, really.
Yeah.
And I think we did.
Oh, you absolutely did. I think it was an incredibly beautiful moment, and I know what a fan you were of the bands all those years.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I when I play hard songs and when I play songs in general, I because I've always been such a true music fan who loves songs and loves stories behind songs. I've always when I've talked about Barracuda, I look at what the music business was like, and still is. It's always been harder, very chauvinistic, male oriented, much machismo way of, and in a way you guys had to navigate through that in those years and be who you were, and you guys rocked out and were these incredible women who did what you did. But Barracuda for me was such a special song. And I know it was born out of an experience that, was typical of the way that people were at that time. And so I had a twofold question about it. I wanted to ask you, and this is something I've been wanting to talk to you about for a long time, was number one was, can we talk about that experience? And also, the Nazareth song, This Flight Tonight, has a riff that's similar, right? Which is a Joni Mitchell cover, right? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask you, if you had heard that version that they had done. It was a couple of years before. It's only like it sounds like the Chug thing. Your song's different, but it's like it's got a vibe. It's got that kind of that sound. So I wanted to ask you about both of those things.
Yeah, I know that the guys in Nazareth, Manny in particular, was, he's kind of a short-tempered guy.
Scottish guy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And he wasn't too pleased with the fact that we used the Chug. But on the other hand, if you go back through the history of the Chug, you'll see it used everywhere.
Yeah.
And it just that the two songs kind of came out on top of each other. So, I just think it's a great groove and nobody's really got a hold on it.
I agree with that. I think it's one of those things where I think you guys both did something great with it. It was separately, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they were doing the Joni Mitchell song from Blue, and you guys wrote your own song, which was your own reaction to an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to me about that. That was, I mean, that in particular, one of the ways to deal with, the way things that happen in our lives and experiences is to go literally, and you as a lyricist, is to work through some of those things in that creative process. And that's why Barracuda, it cuts so well. It's got there's something about it that I love. And can you talk to me about that? Because it was just this there was like some kind of record promotion person or party, or it was both. And, it was just weird, the kind of shit that came out of people's mouths. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it was okay,
Which is
it was accepted as being part of a woman's role in those days. It's like they just said things and they patted you on the butt and they did all kinds of things that aren't acceptable anymore, So in case anyone's wondering if we've come along at all, yes, we have, but not very fast.
Yeah.
And Nancy and I, you have to understand, back in those days in particular, we held our calling as musicians and lyricists and players really high. It was sacred to us. It was not just a couple of cheesecake babes, dressed up in French maids outfits, trying to be sexy, It was real to us. And so when this rack jobber guy, they were called rack jobbers in those days, just radio stock guys, came up to me after a show and asked me how my lover was. And then at that time I was with Mike Fisher.
Yeah.
And and so I said, "Oh, he's fine. He's right over there. You should go say hi." and he went, "No, not your boyfriend. No, not Mike Fisher. Your sister. It was really kind of sleazy and weird.
Yes.
And it made me mad because I was out there and Nancy was out there with a real purity of spirit about our art. We were trying to make art,
Yeah.
And then we were just being shoved down into this sleaze box. And
I'm glad you took that and you wrote an incredible song around it that it stands up. And you can feel the fury in that song, and I think it's great. And it's, which I love about it.
I was mad.
Yeah.
I was mad.
Little Queen, all the, there are so many great songs, but I love that. So, knowing that you've navigated through that and, again, laid the groundwork because so many people, so many women in that situation, even, my girlfriend talks about it because she's worked in film for a long time, and just what she's explained to me. And I'm like, it's mind blowing to me.
And that particular Barracuda thing was like a diss on all women. It wasn't just about me and Nancy. It was like, get back in your place.
Yeah.
Which is like, this is what you're here for. It's not to woo us with poetry and high-minded sacredness. It's to be sexy, and that's it. So, that wasn't that was not agreeable at that time.
Yeah, not at all. And I love that. I love that you that was the way you reacted and took it seriously. And you're right that things have definitely gotten better and progressed, but not in,
they have.
But not as much as there's still a long way to go. I feel, you know what I mean? That's how I feel. And I was saying
there's nothing wrong with being sexy, but I mean, you get my point, is that there's so much more to a person than their sexiness quotient.
100%, without a question. I mean, and that's the thing. And that's what you want to be taken for, because especially as a creative artist, somebody who's writing creative, that's what you want to be known for. You know what I mean? And that's the most important thing. I know that you were very close to Chris Cornell, and I found a picture of he and I it popped up in my social media memory today when we were sitting together because we were always got along so well, and the Soundgarden guys, of course, really accepted me because they knew I was legitimate and really authentic and loved music. I wasn't just some typical radio or even an MTV guy because, I loved and cared about music so much. So that helped us, really build a friendship over the years. So a picture came up of he and I at Electric Lady Studios during Euphoria Morning, promoting that record. And it was, it always gets me because, I love them. And I know you had a great relationship with Chris, too, and we're friends. Can we talk about that? Because it's fresh this morning for me, and I just wanted to talk to you.
Yeah. No, Chris was a really complex and beautiful person. Probably a little too sensitive to live in this world for that long. I just remember him being at different times that I knew him, seeming very big and powerful and strong physically, and then at other times when he was more depressed, he would seem a lot smaller, and he would just fill his physical being or not,
Yeah.
And he was so smart, so intelligent, and cynical, sarcastic. Oh, such a biting wit.
Yeah, he did. He absolutely did. And he was funny. And I think that was when our friendship started years ago because somebody else was interviewing him and he couldn't believe some of the questions they asked him. And he came over to me and just went, "Oh, my God, man." And I'm like,
yeah, really?
Really? It was unbelievable, And one of the things that we shared about, like in later years, too, was when he would get down, he and I both love film noir and old films from the 40s and 50s, and would exchange lists of movies to see. You know what I mean? Sometimes when he would get rolled down, I remember that was one of the last conversations we had for a while. And but I wanted to talk to you about that for a minute too, just because I know that you were close with Chris as well. And
he was a brother. I loved him.
Yeah, I loved him too. He was so that was something I had to say there. So I always wanted to ask you. I know there was a great documentary. It was done on you guys too, but I wanted to know, Ann, because we all have these records that we love that are really, this magical thing that we hear a record, it either makes us want to, perform or write, or it's a catalyst for this thing. It takes us into another world. And makes us explore, really opens up our minds. What were those records for you? What were some of those things early from the very beginning as a young girl up until the time that you started the band and even during?
Well, it was Beatles for me.
Yeah.
And Simon and Garfunkel. I mean, that's the era that I grew up in, that I was a teenager in. And I know Nancy and I shared a bedroom in our parents' house, and Simon and Garfunkel was how she learned how to play the acoustic guitar. It's just by putting the needle down on a Simon and Garfunkel record and learning it,
Yeah, and those records still sound so great to me.
Oh, yeah.
Bookends and like Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme, and I love those records.
They have so much life, and they're just so not corporate or pigeonholed, in any way.
Yeah, they really aren't. You listen to things like Flowers Never Bend with the Rainfall, and Hazy Shade of Winter, of course, was always just like so. The way the acoustic guitars cut on that song were just unbelievable. It was like 2 minutes of perfection, and Homeward Bound just always crushes you no matter what.
Right.
Or Richard Cory, which is like one of the songs about suicide, the guy who has everything, but it's a crazy song.
Right. Those were smart songs. I mean, they were college level literature almost. Some of those songs like the Dangling Conversation.
Yes.
It's really out there type songs.
Yeah.
Poem to an Underground Wall.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. I still listen to some of those lyrics, and I'm going, how old was Paul Simon at the time? I mean, he was
right.
such a great songwriter. And
yeah.
I see his son Harper a lot, and I tell him, and he makes him really happy. He goes that I love his dad, like that I love those records. Those Simon and Garfunkel records are amazing,
Yes, they are. They are. Yeah.
And the Beatles stuff too, of course, is so great. And then So were those the things that were inspiration to you lyrically as well? Or some of the
Yeah,
things?
especially lyrically. For me, I think Paul Simon was a huge influence. Joni Mitchell was, John Lennon was. Those are great lyrics. I mean, some of the things on some of the Beatle record, the latter day Beatle records, like uh, some of the things on the White Album that John came up with, amazing.
Yeah. And a lot of
Right,
times he would not even think they were that great, or he'd like kind of, which
yeah,
blew me away.
right,
Like,
yeah,
but there's great. Like if you listen to those things on there, like Cry Baby Cry, and I mean, you can just
yeah,
go. I mean, the list is unbelievable. I mean, it was amazing. The stuff he would write, like right around the time of Beatles for Sale, which was Beatles '65 here,
hmm
with things like No Reply, I'm a Loser, and you were like, wow. I mean, it was,
yeah,
that was taking.
yeah,
It was totally different than anything else that was going on in pop to write those kind of songs, which are beautiful. I mean, they're just cool and
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
I'm glad that my older brother bought me Plastic Ono Band album when I was 9. He bought me because it was new. And even though a
yeah,
lot of it I didn't some of it I understood, some of it I didn't. Lyrically, it's so amazing, and it's just like as
yeah,
I got older, I started to understand everything more.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
but I love that. This is because this record is so good and so deep. Will there be some Tripster shows? And like, are you thinking about doing some shows?
Yeah, in fact, I've been on tour with Trip Sitter since last June.
Wow.
Um, we've been all over the country so far.
Wow, because I'm so I feel like I missed something or stupid because I should know when you guys are coming through because I love this record. Now that I know the record, and can you talk to me about when are you coming back through? Because the West Coast soon.
Yeah, we have one more leg. We have one more leg in December, and then we will have toured half the year.
Yeah,
But the reason why you haven't heard about it probably is that we're doing like big clubs and theaters and kind of tertiary places. So there hasn't been a big explosion about it.
yeah,
People people are weird because heart, you say the word heart and they'll take their eyes off whatever you're doing and go right to that. So we've been just like, okay, we're doing this over here right now. So we're not going to talk about heart until the time comes.
yeah. Which is great. I mean, because this
Yeah.
record, me and me and Chris, my producer over here, we were like, man, this record is so good. It's so deep, and we were, you know what I mean, and that's the thing. And
Yeah, we almost don't want to stop promoting it because we have to now because the year is turning and we're going to do some hard stuff next year and we have to start promoting that. But we almost don't want to stop with Trip Sitter because the album is getting a lot of momentum and people are really liking it. And it's kind of word of mouth in a way. It's by us going and being in a place and playing some of the songs and being on social media and all that. It's very hands-on how we're doing it. So
and I love the track that you've done with David Draiman and Disturbed. I want to talk to you about
oh yeah,
that
yeah,
because it's a great song, and David is another guy who's super emotional, and of course has covered Simon and Garfunkel himself. You know what I mean? They've done a version of
yeah,
Sound of
yeah.
Silence. So, can you talk to me about that song and meeting up and doing the duet with? I know you recently shot a video, but can you talk to
Yeah.
me about becoming aware of Disturbed and how this whole experience took place? Because I think the results are great.
Well, like so many millions of people, I became aware of Disturbed mostly through their Simon and Garfunkel cover,
Yeah,
Sounds of Silence. And it spun my head around because I'm sensitive about people covering Paul Simon songs because they're so excellent and people tend to abuse them sometimes,
oh yeah,
but cut them up and all kinds of stuff. And I just thought that his version was masterful. And I said something somewhere to someone, and he came to hear it. And not too long after that, I got a call from them, and they said, "We have this song on our new record, Divisive, that we think would be a really cool duet. And so I went in over to the studio where they were in Oakland, and we cut the vocals, and it was cool. It was really cool. I really like David a lot. I like all the Disturbed people that I met, but David is really someone special.
He is. He's a very. He's got so much heart, and he's.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean. No pun intended. I didn't even think about it till I said it. But no. But I mean, like, he's got so much heart and soul, and he cares so much about people. He's a very emotional guy, and kind. He really is. So.
He's a spiritual guy.
Very spiritual, and that's what I love about him, and. And that's why, he's another guy, long friendship with David. He was on, when they came out with their first record, their first TV appearance was on one of my TV shows, and immediately, realized that he was this really just good person and very cool and deep, and spiritual is a great word for that. So I love that. I love that it ties back into the Simon and Garfunkel thing too, which is great.
Yeah, me too.
And it's also funny, too, because you mentioned it. Sometimes people do covers of things, and you're just like, I don't know. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
But wasn't it great how people were, how much people loved Battle of Evermore, like on singles? And
right, yeah. Well, we didn't try and change it off into some other rant, we respected the song, basically. There have been a couple of cover versions of especially Beatles songs that I love the artist, but I couldn't stand the cover, like Eleanor Rigby.
There's some others too, like there's some, sometimes you'll hear things on a Beatles related show, and I'll hear a cover and I'll go, why are you playing that version? Just play the original. Or at least a good cover, because it bugs me out. I'm like, is this supposed to be a Beatles channel or a Beatles show? And the one that's done here by Chris Carter is fantastic. I mean, he is masterful and respectful of the Beatles, and what he does is so great. But I have heard things where I go to myself, as a Beatles fanatic like you are, I love the Beatles so much, and I'm like, why are they playing this version of the song when this is, you know what I mean? And I'm only going to be in the car this long. How about the original?
And to hear the originals is always like a high point of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, even now, decades later,
I mean, it is weird. You'll still hear a song start, like, you mentioned, and you'll hear the vocals kick in on In My Life, or even, a Paul song like I'm Looking Through You. You'll hear that acoustic guitar, and you're just like, it lifts you up. It just, you get a feeling from it. You know what I'm saying? And it's and there's a beauty in that that's unbelievable. That's magical is really the way to say it. And again, Waiting for the Magic, great song on the new record too.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for spending the time with me today. And it was great to connect with you here. I just want to
nice talking with you too.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we'll do it again. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so thank you so much, Ann. We'll speak to you later. And I look forward to seeing you on the road. I'm gonna track down where you are, and my girlfriend and I are gonna come see you guys with Tripter, because I love those songs. So,
okay, great.
All right. I'll speak to you soon. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye now. Thank you. Annwilson, so great. Tripter, that new record. Love those songs, by the way. Anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for checking out KLOS New and Approved. I'm Matt Pinfield, and I'll be back with you soon.